Hey y'all, here comes another special live pod, 3 for 1 today, as we feature the speeches and the Q&A sessions captured last week at the UnidosUS 2026 annual conference in Austin. UnidosUS is the largest nonpartisan Hispanic civil rights and advocacy organization in the United States. They advance social, economic, and political opportunities for Latinos, and we were proud to be invited to cover their annual conference. What follows are the remarks of their headlining guests, J.B. Pritzker, progressive governor of Illinois, who, of course, was key to the success of the Texas House Democratic quorum break last summer. Michelle Lujan Grisham, former U.S. Congresswoman and current Democratic governor of New Mexico, and U.S. Senator and Marine Corps combat veteran Ruben Gallego of Arizona. See the show notes for timestamps and enjoy.
Our first guest is showing us how to confront and challenge a federal government that has become, at best, unreliable and at worst, lawless. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. There you go. Is a leader who has not hesitated to respond to this moment. When the administration threatened to send the National Guard to Chicago, Governor Pritzker signed a bill that prohibits federal agents from arresting people in sensitive areas, schools, hospitals, courthouses. He's worked to address the critical pocketbook issues affecting Latinos and all citizens of Illinois. He has raised the minimum wage, helped lower prescription drug costs and medical debt, expanded funding for housing assistance programs, and importantly, he continues to make it a point to listen to his community, including many of our affiliates and our affiliate leaders in this audience. Please welcome to the stage Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much to Eric. Thanks for that very kind introduction. And good afternoon. Come on, you can do better than that. Good afternoon. It really is such an honor to be with all of you today. I want to thank Janet Murguia, Dr. Maria Harper-Marinek, and UnidosUS for your extraordinary advocacy and your leadership. You know, for generations, Unidos has fought to expand economic opportunity, to protect civil rights, and ensure that Latino families have a seat at every table where decisions are made. And I'm especially proud of the partnership that we've built with Unidos in Illinois, where we have 27 of your affiliates directly serving the over 2.4 million Latinos that call Illinois home. We have the 5th largest Latino community in America. Very proud of that. And I know it's not much compared to your next governor that you're going to see, Michelle Lujan Grisham, but we're really proud of the folks that make up the communities all across the state of Illinois. Across Chicago and Illinois, families originally from San Juan and from Michoacan and from Jalisco and from Guanajuato and from Central and South America have all worked to build glorious communities like Pilsen and La Villita and Humboldt Park, where Hispanic American pride is on display every single day. In Chicago, we celebrate Hispanic heritage at world-renowned cultural institutions like the National Museum of Mexican Art. Yeah. We also host the National Museum of Puerto Rican Arts and Culture. Because Latinos have helped to write the story of Illinois and, of course, of America. Countless parents working hard to give their children greater opportunities, entrepreneurs building businesses, students pursuing their dreams, all of whom make our communities and our nation stronger. That is why we must create the conditions for everyone to thrive. Affordable housing and healthcare, excellent schools, safe neighborhoods, entrepreneurship, and good jobs. With the help of our local partners and Unidos, I've pursued a policy agenda that has had real results for our Hispanic families. Illinois' Latino high school students, I'm very proud of what I'm about to tell you. Illinois' Latino high school students now have achieved the highest graduation rate in the history of our state. And getting a college education is now more affordable than ever, as Latino students who pay no tuition and fees at Illinois colleges has more than doubled during my term in office. We've expanded economic opportunity, with Illinois now home to more than 140,000 Latino-owned businesses. Latino homeownership in Illinois exceeds the national average by 8 percentage points. And among the biggest states in America, Illinois has narrowed the wealth gap between our white and Latino communities to one of the smallest gaps in the nation, better than California, better than Florida, better than New York, better than Texas. And those outcomes don't happen by accident. They happen because advocates like you spoke up, and because Illinois has leadership that listens. Our commitment to success for our Latino communities will never waver. But right now, all of the progress that we've made, all of it, is at risk. Donald Trump is attacking our communities, and the uncertainty and turbulence are overwhelming for too many. Illinoisans experienced profound trauma during Operation Midway Blitz. Before Minneapolis, Trump's masked ICE and CBP agents with assault weapons came to Chicago in unmarked cars, and they wreaked havoc for months in our neighborhoods. And before Renee Good and Alex Preddy were killed, they killed Silverio Villegas Gonzalez, taking his children to daycare. That's all he was doing. And they shot Miramar Martinez, who was just protesting from her car by honking her horn and shouting La Migra. Whether a U.S. citizen, a legal resident, a dreamer, or undocumented, no one with brown or black skin, or who spoke with an accent, or whose only language was Spanish, could safely go to work or attend church or take their children to school. Our people, especially our children, lived with constant anxiety that an ordinary day could suddenly become life-altering. That isn't public safety. That's a targeted campaign of abuse and terror. Illinois is still dealing with the emotional and the economic fallout of that. Some businesses in La Villita, a thriving Mexican-American neighborhood, reported 50% drops in year-over-year revenue. These businesses, like candy store Dulcelandia or restaurant Nuevo Leon, are part of the cultural fabric of our city and our state, and they suffered mightily. When those ICE raids began, I pledged to the people of Illinois that we would not look away, that we would not stay silent, and we would fight this with everything that we had. We challenged their unwarranted and unlawful actions in court, and we won. And we were the first state in the nation to set up a state-sponsored accountability commission to preserve a public record of the ICE and CBP attacks so that we can pursue true justice and people could get their day in court. I'm very proud of how we responded with our state government, but I am even more proud of how the people of Illinois responded. A report found that in the past year, over a third of Chicago residents donated money and supplies or time directly to immigrant families or to Latino advocacy groups. A third. And 20% of Chicagoans carried a whistle that they would use to alert communities of ICE's presence. I saw it firsthand. People put their safety on the line to protect their neighbors. Ordinary folks stood up and spoke out and protested. In the face of cruelty and intimidation. Illinois chose solidarity and compassion, and we drove an end to the Operation Midway Blitz. But folks, real damage has been done to our people, lasting damage. Many mixed status families were torn apart. Children were traumatized. Businesses were diminished. But the resilience of our Latino communities would make you proud. We are rebuilding. We are working to overcome. Latino small business owners, farmers, and entrepreneurs who power major sectors of our economy are forging ahead undaunted. Students, teachers, and caregivers know that our state government stands with them, and Americans, Illinoisans of all stripes, stand in solidarity. The resilience and the optimism, even as the road ahead feels perilous to us all. And being in rooms like this one, honestly, fills me with pride and an unshakable faith that our best days are still ahead of us. That isn't guaranteed. We need to organize. We need to vote. We need to govern with a fighting spirit that, well, like never before. That is what Unidos has always done. Together, we have to stand up, we have to speak out, we have to be loud for America. So I have to ask all of you, are you ready for the fight? Are you ready for the fight? Let's work together to build a stronger and more prosperous and more just America. Thank you all very much for having me here today.
To join the governor, please welcome to the stage UnidosUS President and CEO, Janet Murguia.
Hi. Bienvenido. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Governor, for those very inspiring words. We're so happy to have you here. Want to make sure that we'll just take a few minutes to just get some Q&A so you can get a full picture of the governor. I just really appreciate your championing so many issues as you've highlighted. But let me start with the first question. And again, we appreciate you being here. You know, as part of our conference and the ongoing work we've done for many years, earlier today, we shared a vision statement about immigration that reflects our community's core values. You've been very vocal about what's happening in your state, and I appreciate you laying that out again today. In terms of not just policy, but what are some of the core values that guide and drive the way you fought for immigrants and the families in your state?
I love the vision statement that you put out. Thank you for doing that, and thank you all for engaging in that process. Here's what I will tell you. My great-grandfather was a refugee to this country. Literally, my family would have been killed had he not escaped from the Ukraine. The Russians were chasing the communities of people that my family represent. And my great-grandfather arrived here in the United States and in Chicago at age 10. He had no money, nothing at all. He spoke no English. He lived in the train station, the sub-basement of the Chicago train station when he first arrived. It was a social service agency that gave him a place to live. It was a public school in Illinois that gave him an education. He learned English there, and he became successful in part because he got a college education, put himself through college, and managed later to get a law degree. And I'm told, I didn't know him, but I'm told that he spoke the King's English by the time he was later on in his adult life. But I tell you that because my values are really what I believe the values are of people who believe in this country as a destination for immigrants. I believe that this country is made stronger by virtue of our immigrants. I feel myself to be one of them. That is, I know I'm a few generations down from my great-grandfather, but I can tell you that the idea of, fundamentally believing in this country, the patriotism that so many who arrive here feel for the country, and and the entrepreneurship that people bring with them, right? The idea that you can build something great for yourself, for your family. That's something that my family has carried with us for generations now. So I'm really proud of that. My father built a business. My family has done public service for generations. My grandfather was in the Navy, my uncle in the Navy, my father in the Navy, all of them officers in the Navy, a crypto analyst, my father, serving in Japan in a cave, listening to Soviet submarine transmissions. My sister was the Commerce Secretary for President Obama. I serve as governor. My point is that it is often the immigrants themselves and first generation, second generation, third generation immigrants who remember their history that are the most patriotic and most public service minded.
Well, we see how personal it is to you. Thank you so much. Let me move to a little bit of a different topic. Your administration has raised the minimum wage, worked to reduce prescription drug costs and medical debt, expanded housing assistance, and made historic investments in early childhood education, all of great importance, obviously, to Latino families and voters. What ties these priorities together, and why have they been so important for helping working families across Illinois, including so many Latino families, would you say?
I appreciate the question, Janet, and I have to say that it's because I know where I came from. I know where my family came from. I know that I chose to my party that I belong to. I chose my party, I chose my politics based on the idea that we should be fighting for the most vulnerable, for the working families of our country, for the middle class, that people who are well off and well-to-do don't need so much help from the government. But the government's... And by the way, there's nothing wrong with paying people a living wage. People ought to be able to survive and thrive. And we've done that, and we've done it successfully in Illinois, raising the minimum wage, for example, and we did it in a way that was sensitive to the needs of small businesses. You know, small businesses are quite important to the future of the country, and it's my belief that you have to do this in a way that takes into account, big businesses can handle the increase in a minimum wage. Small businesses have the hardest time with it, and so we did it with a tax credit associated with it. We did it ratably over 5.5 years, raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour. I think the country ought to be talking about that and more. We're still at $7.25. No one can survive on that, on even two jobs.
Right.
At full-time jobs at $7.25. So I really believe that what we ought to be standing up for the people who need us most. And in this moment, when people are feeling the burdens of unaffordability, the burden that everything is just too darned expensive, that it's our job to do everything we can to lower costs and things, or at least to stop the increases, and particularly to ask corporations, and maybe force corporations, to stop raising prices on things just because they can.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm going to move to one more topic before I ask the last question. But your administration has expanded civil rights protections in Illinois at a time of significant national debate over those issues. Why do you believe states have an important role to play in protecting the rights and dignity of all their residents, including our Latino communities?
Well, I don't know when, I kind of know when, but I don't know exactly when the federal government and people who got elected to office at the national level decided that it wasn't their job to protect our civil rights. I mean, the Voting Rights Act has been decimated. It used to be that the federal government actually, for literally like 80 years, has been moving, the old expression about, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. I always believed in that. I always have. But it doesn't bend toward justice on its own. It bends toward justice because we all make it do that. And when we have leaders who genuinely don't want that or are bending it the other direction, we all have to stand up and fight back. So at the state level, yes, there is a federal constitution, but the people of my state want me to stand up for their rights. They want me to make sure that people aren't just getting tackled and taken away because they're black or brown and because they speak with an accent or speak a different language. In fact, it's one of our greatest advantages in this country that we are a country of immigrants, that we are a nation that is diverse. Why is it an advantage? I'll just say this one thing. It's an advantage. There are many more reasons than what I'm saying, like the cultural reasons that it's so important that we are a country that shares culture among one another. But here's the other point I would make. Our nation, the diversity of our nation is really our strength, because in this moment, when developed countries are seeing birth rates decline, one of our advantages is we should be the nation that accepts more immigrants, not fewer. We should be the nation. It's good for our economy. It's good for our people. It's good for us to be a nation made up of everyone from around the world, because we choose the values. We choose the values of being an American, right? We're all choosing this. It isn't like we're forced to. People are coming here because this is the greatest nation on earth. We ought to be standing up for that. And that's what I believe in my state. I have the most diverse state in terms of our population is most reflective of the population of the United States. No other state, when you break down the demographics, looks like the United States more than the state of Illinois. And I'm proud of that diversity.
Before I ask the last question, I'm going to mention something that has impressed me a lot about Governor Pritzker. Not too long ago, it seems like you got on the wrong side of President Trump. And he got pretty irritated, so irritated that I think he threatened to send some folks to really target
jail me.
you. Yeah.
He said he would jail me. Yep.
Governor Pritzker's response made me pause. He looked right into the camera when they asked him this question, and he said, "Come get me." I was that got my attention. I really appreciate your courage, and you're prioritizing the clarity of a purpose of what you want to accomplish. So, last question, what are you hopeful about?
It's hard in this moment, I know, to be hopeful, but I guess I would look at something that's just happened in the last year and a half, in these terrible moments, in this turbulent time we live in. And I'll give the example. I talked a little in my remarks earlier about about people coming out with their whistles, people, and in neighborhoods that you wouldn't expect, right? People who've never protested before, who stood up and spoke out. People who, this isn't who they are, and yet they're outraged by what's happening to this country. But I'm going to give you a quick story. In southern Illinois, central Illinois, Edwardsville, Illinois, which has about 28,000 people live in it. About a month after Donald Trump got elected, a woman named Andy Smith was so fed up with what she saw was happening to our country about immigration, about the economy, about tariffs, everything. So outraged. And by the way, this is an area of the state that's, pretty purple-red, in a state that I think many people think of as being, blue. But she came out and she had a sign, and I don't know exactly what the sign, but it was a protest sign protesting Donald Trump and his policies. And she went to, this is again, somewhat rural area of our state, and she went to the crossroads of two state highways and just with her sign by herself held up the sign in protest, hoping that people passing by would see her sign. And a guy with a dog saw her, was walking his dog, and he walked over to her and he said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm protesting. I can't stand what's happening to this country." And he said, "Can I stand here with you?" He didn't have a sign, and he wasn't yelling or anything. He just wanted to be there with her in protest. That was that day. The next day, she came out, and 4 of her friends came out and joined her. And then the next day, more. And now, every Friday in Edwardsville at the crossroads, about 300 people show up to protest. That gives me hope. That gives me something to hope for, because if we stand up, speak out, protest, be loud for America, if we do those things, we can change this country. Of course, we have to organize, get out to vote, and govern well. So.
Well, join me in thanking Governor Pritzker for making it a priority to be here today and for championing so many important issues. Thank you. We're going to do a quick photo. You put your microphone down, and then I'm just going to get you right here.
All right. That was great. Did you enjoy that? Fantastic. All right. Put your phones down. Stay focused. This next one's going to be outstanding. So our next remarkable guest has shown us what it looks like to lead and govern in the midst of all this chaos and instability at the federal level. She has rallied the New Mexico state government to improve conditions for children, students, and families. A proud 12th generation New Mexican, Governor Lujan Grisham is the first Latina Democrat ever elected governor in U.S. history. All of history. She is number one. She's dedicated her career to advancing the dignity, health, the opportunity of the people that she serves, always. During her time as the U.S. representative for New Mexico's 1st congressional district and the chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, she pushed for immigration reform and worked to broaden health care access for all. As governor of New Mexico, she passed landmark universal healthy meals legislation, guaranteed all school children receive 2 nutritious meals a day at no cost. She has also spearheaded and launched the Care Corps, an innovative program that places volunteers in local communities to provide non-medical care to seniors and individuals with disabilities. Her administration has provided tuition-free college to tens of thousands of New Mexicans and signed historic climate and voting rights legislation into law. And under her leadership, New Mexico is the only state with universal free child care for qualified families, only state in the union. Mind you, she's only done this in 7 years, leading at the state level. So it's just been amazing in terms of the accomplishments for New Mexico. At last year's conference, Unidos had the pleasure of honoring her with the Graciela Olivares La Raza Award for her significant contributions promoting the interests of Hispanic Americans in New Mexico and everywhere. Please join me in welcoming the governor of New Mexico, Michelle Lujan Grisham, to the stage. Thank you.
Oh, good afternoon. My favorite thing is when the person who introduced me has to stand on my box. So I'm not as tall as J.B. Pritzker. And in fact, I'm first in the nation in that regard, too. I am the shortest governor in America's history. And I'm likely to hold that record forever. And it's all right. I'm delighted to be back and to do exactly what JB did, which is thank you. The work that we do doesn't matter unless the people we're doing it with are making it matter. Here and everywhere, I am so grateful to Unidos and Janet and the entire team, and I'm delighted to be back here again. And I also want to do a little shout out to my colleagues who are being recognized, including Mickey Ibarra and Joaquin Castro, who, I taught Joaquin Castro everything he knows. All right, that's not true. They're remarkable, and so are the other recipients. So let's get started. I already said, look, this is the organization that shows up never says no, and is the loudest and most effective on the issues that really matter. And so I want to make sure that you're clear that our progress in this country rests solely on this and relatable organizations. So be bigger, be bolder, hold that courage, and let's move this country forward and never repeat the history of the last 4 years and Trump won. All right, that we have to end it, and I believe that you all together have the power to do that. And you've done it by lifting up the people who make the country run. Business owners, veterans, families who aren't just chasing the American dream, but they're building it every day with their own hearts and their hands. And so I want to tell you why I think I'm here. Nearly half of New Mexico's population is Hispanic or Latino. Our Constitution was written in Spanish. And enshrined. All right, so we're clear about our language and our history and our pride and our dignity. A quarter of our households in New Mexico speak Spanish at home. It isn't a demographic I'm courting for a few months every 4 years. It's the state that I serve and the people that I work for every single day. Now, here's the thing about tangibles right now. Washington has walked away from the families who need Washington policies most. And when the federal government pulls back on the fundamentals, the work states do and the work organizations like this one do matters more than ever. And I want to say something specifically about my really good friend, Governor Pritzker. And while we're always a little competitive, I really mean it. Illinois and New Mexico, frankly, New Mexico and everyone, are fierce competitors on wage growth, on job security, on dignity and respect for working families, and on leaning into the industries that are actually going to define the next 50 years, quantum, high-tech, advanced manufacturing. And some days, in fact, Illinois and J.B. Pritzker, he edges us out. And some days, we're right behind him on his heels. Sometimes I'm ahead. And I don't mind that competition because it means we're both proving the same thing. States can deliver for Hispanic and Latino families, even when Washington won't. And I want to do a quick reminder about what that looks like in my home state, in New Mexico. So back in 2021, we launched the Opportunity Scholarship. And I want to tell you what that is. It is universal, no wrong door, fully paid, 2-year, 4-year, part-time, full-time, anywhere, anytime college. Fully funded. It also fully funds the trades and apprenticeships and earn while you learn. So there's no wrong door. We don't judge where you're headed. We just open the doors and make sure that there's real equality in making that happen. And there's no income requirement. None. More than 41,000 students are using that right now. The typical, clap for that. It's a big dang deal. The typical recipient is under 25 on a Pell Grant, and more often than not, is a young Latina who is the first in her family to go to college. And I'm going to make the people that I do this in my state all the time. I'm terrible about a teleprompter because I just do whatever I want. And people are like, what's happening? I'm going to do a quick story because I've got no more time, but I'm going to take time. Look, when I launched free college, part of that was I didn't have to worry about college. I had a family situation that had its own set of hardships, but going to college wasn't one of them. I'm the 7th generation in my family to have a graduate degree. It was just part of what happens. Yeah, thank you. But it was not the experience of most families. And my sister was terminally ill and really sick, and I'm the oldest, so I get everything, and I'm bossy. And my brother in the middle missed all of those opportunities. He didn't always see them for what they were. And he struggled. He really struggled. He couldn't find himself. He was a bartender, didn't have any retirement, he didn't have home ownership. It was just really a battle. And I have to tell you the truth, I love my brother, but I didn't think that college or figuring out a job that would give him time off, paid leave, time to take care of himself or sick kids was ever in the cards for him. And a couple of years ago, 4 years ago, in fact, I got a Hallmark card from my brother in the mail. Now, he knows where I live. He comes over there all the time. So I open up this Hallmark card, and inside this Hallmark card are two things. Handwritten note by my brother just telling me that he loves me, which that's pretty nice, because I was kind of a mean older sister. And a report card from college with straight A's. My brother just graduated from a university, summa cum laude, and is now on a full ride scholarship for his master's degree. This is how you achieve the American dream. Is there's never a judgment about how or when. It's just always there for you when you need it. But we didn't end there. Then we went to the other side of that equation. We launched universal free pre-K. Every 3-year-old, every 4-year-old in a quality program, no cost to parents, statewide. And it's one of the collective best programs in America, and we didn't stop there. We now have universal, no cost, fully paid, universal child care for every New Mexico family, saving families $13,000 a year per child, which means we're building a workforce and an economy. And women can choose to go back to the workforce when and if they desire to do so. And you know what else? We don't make you work. People just want to work. They do the work. This is about dignity in a house to provide the kinds of developmental supports and well-being that families have always needed in America. We must deliver this blueprint for democracy, cradle to career, everywhere in America, because this is what lifts every American family up. And when you do that, you're lifting every Hispanic family up. That is not rocket science. That is equity and is what we can build in America. I've gone too long. They have no idea where I am in my remarks. They're back there scratching their heads. But I want to tell you two more quick things. One, we're the only state in America that has also created universal health care coverage. Only state that fully subsidized and supported the Affordable Care Act. Only state that's got a Medicaid trust fund. Only state that fully funded SNAP and food when the feds cut it. We put it all together. The only $400 million in affordable housing. We went from ranked 40th because of our opportunity scholarships to 20 in colleges and universities. All right? It works. And here's the last point. We're building an economy that works for everyone. New Mexico's long been known as a poor state. A state where child well-being and educational outcomes just weren't meeting the grade. Well, unless you provide the infrastructure that's about dignity, independence, and respect for the families that represent and work the hardest in this country, we're not going to be able to deliver that for anyone in this country. It won't be secure. So I think, as we battle immigration, as we fight the fight that create that equality in this country, that we're clear about what builds the economy and the foundation for the future, that road to that success, that independence and freedom runs right through us and right through organizations like you. Thank you for allowing me to be here today to tell you that I'm ready to work in 26 and 28.
Once again, please welcome UnidosUS President and CEO Janet Murguia.
Wow. Well, that's impressive. Well, listen, we'll go through some of these more lightning round, but we'll see if we can. We got one more great speaker here, leader today. But look, you touched on one of the most salient issues, because in our own polling, we found that 43% of Latino parents identified access to quality, affordable childcare, early learning as the top issue. New Mexico is the first and only state in the union to guarantee universal child care to all its residents, regardless of immigration status.
That's right.
I mean, how did a small but mighty state like New Mexico achieve this monumental policy accomplishment? You had to work with the legislature. You had to tell us a little bit about that, and I know you've seen what the impact is for the economic opportunities for families as a result.
Well, part of it is I had a game plan. I campaigned on that promise in 2018, but I tried to make sure that other policymakers could help shape this effort. So everyone before me, for pre-K and childcare, as we're figuring out these family policies, we're trying to tap into our endowment funds that are set aside from the energy economy for K through 12 education. But when oil and gas prices fall, they typically then start cutting back on school funding, which is what states do. It's monumentally dumb. You do not take away educational, foundational family support investments. These are the things that build economies, not break them. So we were fighting about that, and I stopped fighting about it. In 2019, I went to the legislature and said, look, if we're going to argue about whether we use a fund, let's create a new one. So we put $300 million into a early childhood and care trust fund that was supposed to be for pre-K and child care. And today it's well more than $11 billion.
Now,
And my endowment fund went from $23 billion,
Wow.
who says women aren't good for the economy, to $70 billion. And so we gave credibility to voters, and you know what they did, Janet? They put it in our Constitution. So in addition
Wow.
to Spanish being the official language, child care and
That's
pre-K
amazing.
are enshrined in our Constitution.
well, your leadership has been extraordinary on that. Let's talk on one topic. You referenced it, but I know a lot of our folks care deeply about small businesses, entrepreneurship. Nearly half of New Mexico's residents are Latino, and small businesses account for 99% of the businesses in the state. I was seeing that statistic jump off. Those numbers underscore how important entrepreneurship is to the state's future and to so many in our community. What specific initiatives are helping aspiring entrepreneurs across access capital, mentorship, and resources that they need to launch successful businesses? And what have you been most proud of in that area?
A couple of things. I mean, we do direct investments and tax credits and tax incentives to create and hold businesses. Those early years are really fragile. And women, particularly minority women, own businesses. So women don't have enough equity in these businesses. So we do straight investments to make sure that they're competing. Lastly, that endowment fund. Well, it was always investing in sort of the sure thing somewhere else.
Yep.
$100 million to start, but now it's really grown. We invest in New Mexico businesses, and I will tell you, it's made us a leader in advanced tech. And while I was, talking about the race to the top, Illinois and New Mexico, the world's top quantum scientists are in New Mexico right now. And it's because we're investing in these high-tech businesses, and we're doing it from the ground up.
That's fantastic. Governor, another topic, you've often said that economic opportunity begins long before someone applies for their first job. From expanding access to tuition-free college to supporting small businesses and attracting new industries, you just referenced, your administration has invested in a number of pathways to success. How do you see those efforts helping Latino families build not just better careers, but endurable, lasting economic security?
Part of that is by giving people choices, which means dignity, which means they can make decisions at the beginning of their career, and like my brother, at the end of their career, and in the middle. You know, this notion that we want one size fits all. I mean, I'm old enough, if I might be so bold. Janet and I were around where every time we talked about jobs for folks who may not have a college degree or a license or trade, be a coder. Now, we need people doing information technology, no question, and computer science, but how uniquely arrogant to say to the world and to say to all of us that we know what job you should have. What we need is create pathways. The more pathways you have, the more economic success you will have. And we have demonstrated that. We're one of the top states for economic growth. We're one of the top states for GDP growth. And even though we have these huge resource funds, individual income in our state, we're still identified as one of the poorest states in America. I don't want that statistic to stay. It must end and never come back, and we do that by investing in New Mexicans so that they have real power over their futures. And that's what I love about your organization, is the economic aspect is about empowering and choice, and it works.
Well, again, that's generational wealth, and growing that wealth is something we've been invested in. It's been amazing to see your leadership. I feel like, you know, I know a lot of folks recognize your leadership. I feel like we're putting a spotlight, though, on your record of impact as governor in New Mexico and showing folks that we can accomplish some of these monumental changes that we're trying to get nationally. You're making it happen. And I guess before I ask the last question, I'm going to share one thing that has impressed me about you. You're a first. You're the first Democratic Latina governor in the country. You've never forgotten to help other Latinas. A lot of discussion right now about Latina power, but I just really appreciate your commitment to growing future leaders, whether they're Latina or Latinos, and the example that you have set. And oh my God, your shoes are so impressive. Anyhow, so last question, what are you optimistic about?
Well, this conversation. We're not just talking about what could be, we're demonstrating what is and how to take it someplace else. I really appreciated that, again, you know, I have a lot of really great colleagues and mentors, you included. JB has been fearless on immigration. I was in Congress when we had a deal that was this close, and earnestly, I think the Democrats botched it in large part. And it was the USA Act. And we need courage. We need to demand accountability by the federal government, that it is unconstitutional to use fear and intimidation and to attack the fabric of this country in the way we are. And that issue cannot be a sideline issue, but it must be married with the economic opportunities and successes and freedoms of our Hispanic and Latino communities and women. There's more of us. And so I'm just saying this not as a competition between the genders, but rather when women have made less, when the people who make the very least are Hispanic women still, when the caregiving in this country is still done by minority women, which means we get boxed out of economic success and wealth, we have to start talking about a different frame. That means that our families can not just make it, They're going to keep building this country because they're going to thrive in this country. Now, that's something to vote for with tangible opportunities. I know it's possible. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing you do it. And I feel better than I did a year and a half ago or 3 years ago about where we were headed. And that's an important thing. And I want to just end with this. We have an obligation as Americans to be hopeful.
Yeah.
Voting is a privilege. Take it seriously. If we're demoralized and depressed, there's going to be no action. And I know it's hard. And I have some bad days. But by and large, this is the stuff that inspires me.
Well, you've given us a lot to be inspired with. Let's join me in thanking
thank
Governor
you.
Michelle Lujan
Thank
Grisham.
you.
Let's get a quick picture.
Got it.
Thank you. Quick picture, huh?
Right back.
Senator from Arizona, Senator Ruben Gallego.
Pues buenas tardes, buenas tardes. ¿Cómo están todos? Well, first of all, it is an honor here to be in Houston. Austin. Well, that's a bit missed right there. All right, Tejanos, calm down. Thank you for just having me here. But before I begin, I do want to thank my dear friend, Janet Murguia, really for her unrelenting leadership, and our board chair, another Arizonan, Dr. Maria Harper Marinek, who led Maricopa Community Colleges for so many years. And thank you for all your work and all your vision here at Unidos. So we're meeting today about talking, but also fulfilling the promise of America. We not really talk about the promise of America without facing the reality of what Latino families are dealing with right now. Just days ago, right here in Texas, a family in Carrollton received the news every parent dreads. I know my mom, certainly when I was in war, faced this fear every day. Army Private Isabela Gonzalez, just 19 years old, 1 year out of high school, was killed in Jordan in this stupid war with Iran. 19 years old. She volunteered to step up and defend our country like so many people in our community do. And yet, while this young Latina is out there, Isabela, giving her life to this country, back home, our people are being targeted for who they are. In Houston, Lorenzo Salgado, a 52-year-old construction worker and father of 3 U.S. citizens, was shot and killed by ICE agents. He wasn't even the target. He was just a Latino man waking up, driving a van, going to work to feed his family, like many of our fathers and brothers and cousins have. And 30 years ago, I would have been one of those men in those vans. Our young men and women now make up close to 30% of the United States military. We build the cities, we pick the food, we start small businesses, and we pay our taxes, and we defend this country. We do our share. Yet, extreme politicians and this Supreme Court has said that us speaking Spanish or working on a job site is enough to racially profile us. The Supreme Court is saying you, being a hardworking Latino, is a reason why they could racially profile you. And this is not a theory. This is not something I'm making up. My nieces and nephews in Chicago felt that they had to carry on passports last year because they thought they may have been also targeted. So we should all set the record straight here, Unidos. Latinos are not the guests in the country. We are part of the very fabric of this country. The truth that extremists really try to hide is simple. There is no successful America without a successful Latino community, period. Where we go as a community is where this country goes. We are the youngest, fastest growing population in America. Latina women are opening up small businesses at 6 times the national rate of anybody else in this country. And investment in our community is literally an investment in the United States. When Latinos are strong, America is strong. When Latinos are prosperous, America is prosperous. Our work ethic, our music, our deep devotion to family, our culture is not a sideshow. It is the main event in this country. And we don't have to just hear from the great philosopher Bad Bunny, who reminded us, but it's very true, together we are America. But right now, the math isn't adding up for our working class and Latino families. Too many moms and dads are working 2 or 3 jobs, and they're measuring their wealth by how many hours they work and still falling short. And that feeling that we all grew up with, that yes, the American dream is possible, is really feeling like it's slipping away from these communities. And they aren't looking for handouts. Our people never look for handouts. But they want to enjoy the fruits of their labor, to buy a home, make a living, and give their kids a better shot. So that's why in Washington we did pass a great bill to finally fix our housing system and make home ownership easier for first-time buyers. That's why I'm going to continue to fight to raise the minimum wage to at least $20 an hour, so we can have strong public schools also, and really support that Latina small business owner. Because if our kids aren't educated, the country isn't educated. If our people can't buy homes, the country doesn't build wealth. Unidos, mi gente, standing up for our community in this moment is not an act of opposition to America. It is what is required of us as good Americans. Standing up for Private Isabella Gonzalez's family, standing up for the working fathers in Houston that are being targeted, and demanding that our dignity be respected is an act of deep and profound love for this country that we're only trying to improve. Because there is no national coalition. There is no vibrant democracy without us, without Latinos. So when they try, and they will try, when they try to make us feel hopeless or drive us back into the shadows, we fight back. We organize, we register to vote, and we bring our people to the polling booth. That's what actually scares them. And we are not going anywhere. Our labor makes this country wealthy. Our culture makes it rich. And our services keep it free. So let's just meet this moment and really fulfill the promise of America and build that future for our children. Build that future that our children deserve. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias.
All right. Way to go.
Once again, please welcome UnidosUS President and CEO, Janet Murguia.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for being with us. I know you got a lot on your plate. We got a lot of work still, I guess, back in D.C., but appreciate you being here. Senator, meaningful engagement and outreach to Latino voters requires more than campaign ads in the final weeks before the election. A lot of analysts, in fact, have pointed to your Senate campaign as an example of how to successfully connect with working class and Latino voters, including young Latino men. What do you think your campaign understood about the priorities and aspirations of working class families and Latino families that maybe other folks missed? I know you've been really credited for how you ran that campaign.
So I had the luxury of actually not having establishment support when I ran for Senate. I was running against an incumbent, and people thought I couldn't push her out. I wouldn't win the primary, and then people thought I couldn't win the general. So for a long time, I was kind of running on my own. And we basically designed the campaign without a lot of input from D.C. And I had always wanted to run this type of campaign where we did some deep actual organizing, actually talking to Latinos, working class Latinos, and not just kind of the grass tops, right? And a lot of times what happens in politics is that we get the same 5 leaders in the same taco place, we take pictures and we Latino outreach, man, that's it. And then we get 54%, and then everyone's like, well, we should never invest that time or money in Latinos, right? So it's a horrible. So we flipped it on its head. We actually made it core that we have to reach out to Latinos because there's no way we were going to win that state without it. So we started early. Like my first, TV advertisements in Spanish started in March of 2024. And we leaned into actually a lot of your UNIDO affiliates here who are huge community leaders to help me get that vote out, help to talk to people. We also did talk about what was actually happening in people's lives. So, like, I'm very lucky, for those who are from Arizona, I live in South Phoenix. South Phoenix is a very working class Latino part of the city. I saw early on that Latinos were going to the grocery store and they weren't filling up the grocery cart. They were going to the gas station, they weren't filling up their gas. And then Washington, D.C. was saying, well, things are getting better. I'm like, man, that ain't getting better. Like, when Latinos are not spending money on food and on gas, like, that's a problem. And we ran right to the problem. And we started talking to Latinos about what they felt was a disappointment. And the fact is, Democrats were disappointing the Latino worker, especially the male worker, in 2024. We weren't answering the call of the desperation that they were shouting at us.
I appreciate your candor. It really hit home. And speaking of hitting home, I mean, you've talked about intergenerational wealth. We know what you have to do to start helping build wealth in our communities, and home ownership has been a big part of that. I know you've talked about that. At UnidosUS, we've spent years helping Latino families navigate a path to home ownership because we know it can be life-changing when it comes to building wealth. Yet, home ownership is becoming less attainable for many first-time buyers. You've made housing affordability a signature issue in the Senate. What will it take to make the dream of home ownership a reality for more working families?
I mean, it's going to take everything. We are in a very severe time that I think people and politicians just aren't understanding. We're about to create the poorest generation of Americans since prior to the Great Depression, right? And what that means is that generation is going to be a lot of Latinos because we're younger, we're working still, we're just graduating college. The wealth that was created in this country all came from the post-World War II economy, where millions of veterans came back and got free housing, essentially, and they were able to kind of build their wealth on that, right? Right now, we need to have a massive government investment in getting these young families, doesn't matter what race you are, into homes, or else we're going to doom this generation to poverty. And so, like, they're not treating it how it should be, right? Like, I have like ideas that, I think like we should, any, federal piece of lot in cities, we need to just take that and start building condos and selling it to young families. There's 1%, loans, everything. We need to start thinking outside the box because the longer we do this, by the way, the poorer it is and the harder it is to actually turn it around. Yep. And it's scary how hard it is out there. I talk to families, and I'm not even talking young families. I'm talking like people that are in their mid-30s, 40s that are avoiding relationships because they're still living at home with their parents. Don't want to start a family because they have nowhere to put them. You have people that are like moving from couch to couch, from cousin's house to cousin's house, and these kids feel unmoored because they have no community and any stability whatsoever. And so if we're wondering what's going on with our young people in this country, why they feel so unhappy, well, they're just like everyone else. They want a damn house. They want stability. They want to have this feeling of being part of something, and we as a country haven't prioritized it for this generation.
Yes, I'm proud of the work you've led and proud of the work UnidosUS has led. Yeah. We've created the largest Latino homeownership counseling network in the country. Many of our affiliates help us make sure we're engaging families through the steps they need to take.
One of them actually did help my mom get her house, too.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
And this year, UnidosUS put its 50,000th family into their first-time home. So we know how to do this, and we've seen your leadership, and it matters. Let me ask you about Latinos, having a proud tradition of military service, yet many veterans still face challenges accessing health care, housing, education, good-paying jobs after returning home. As a Marine combat veteran, how has your own service shaped the way you have fought and advocated for veterans? And what more can we do to ensure Latino veterans receive the opportunities they've earned?
Well, I mean, the first step is there's an element of unfortunately that still exists within Latino veterans, that there's this machismo element to it, which stops us from getting a lot of health care. And I'll be honest, I fell to that. I got back from the war. I was an infantryman. I saw a lot of things that really affected me for many years, and I was living with PTSD for almost probably a decade before I, had to go get help. Right? I had a kid coming. I wanted to be a good father. But in those 10 years, I avoided the help that I should have gotten to kind of put me in the right space and the right frame of mind. And there's a lot of Latinos right now, especially men, and even now a lot of Latino veterans that aren't going and getting that help, right? So I think, number one, as a community, we should just in general have a better attitude about mental health, right? Because that's something that I think we've been avoiding as a community for quite a while. So establishing an environment where we want veterans to get themselves better, right? Number two, the access and outreach to the VA happens is a lot of times is based on some very old, systems. They usually through the American Legion or through anything else like that. And a lot of young Latino veterans don't go and join the American Legion, right? They should. It's a great group. I happen to belong to Post 41 in South Phoenix. It is the traditional Latino American Legion post. That's where I joined because when I came back, I wanted to go somewhere where I could talk to Latino men about what I was feeling about what happened to me in the war. But there aren't that many out there, right? So we need to figure out how to approach these veterans, both female and male, through digital, through text messaging, through whatever means to actually get them the benefits and for them to understand what they can do. Like you could get a housing benefit, you could get housing, you could get scholarships. If you, for some reason, end up being homeless, we could get you into an apartment. But a lot of times, it's just the access to information that you just never get. And it's just because traditionally the way the VA has been reaching out to people is based on the 1950s, 1960 models of what a veteran is. The veteran right now is not the same veteran from year. The veteran right now is listening to Bad Bunny, not to Garth Brooks, right? It's just it's a very different veteran. Still same patriotism, but they're just a very different way to talk to them.
Yes, and thank you for your service. You've been quite candid about the fact that a lot of our, especially military service members who needed help, need to feel free like they can ask for help, and there's been a stigma tied to that. So thank you for that. I've been impressed by a lot in your young career. You've really made it clear how important it is to speak directly and authentically to our community and to others about the real problems that people and the burdens that we're facing. I think I heard that you actually, when you were growing up, you worked in the migrant farm. You were in the migrant farm work?
No, I worked at a farm. When my father was still around, we worked a farm in Chihuahua, Santa Ana de San Borjas. And so I remember I was there seeding, rounding up cattle, everything else like that as a kid. And then every summer got shipped down for free labor for my family.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you carry the burden that you see in so many communities like ours and working families with you in your heart, and you're carrying that with you as you try to create paths towards solutions. So
I mean, to be honest, I think for me, I remember being poor, and I remember going to work, after school and during the summers or anything else like that. And I remember the pride of bringing home a paycheck to my mom. Right, she was raising 4 kids on her own. I was, contributing, my $200, $400 a month so she could help with the rent or the utilities, whatever it is. I think the most frustrating thing I hear from a lot of Latino families is that they don't mind working hard, right? We're Latinos. We've worked hard our whole lives. Nothing's ever handed to us, right? They'll go do the dirtiest, hardest work, and I've done the dirtiest, hardest work possible. But the dignity you get is not from the work. It's what you bring to your family, right? And if I can't bring stability to my family, it's not that hard work becomes more difficult. Yeah. If I can't bring a promise of future to my family, working at the construction sites at 5 a.m. in the morning, going to the meatpacking factory during the summers, doing whatever it is, becomes harder and harder because we'll sacrifice whatever we can for our family, but if they're not getting the fruits of that labor, then work just sucks, right? And so this is my obsession as an elected official is trying to figure out how to make that person's, money actually mean something, right? Because the way that Latinos measure wealth and dignity is by how many hours equals how much success for their family.
Right. We're going to hit our last question.
Yes,
I'll just make a point to say, we've promoted an economic prosperity agenda, which really has at the heart of it a value statement. And increasingly, in addition to focusing on dignity, it's really how can we make sure that our families, if they are working hard, that they're able to enjoy their lives. I mean, it can't just be all about the burden of work.
Jalando siempre, right? That's what they said, right? No.
Last question, what are you optimistic about, or what gives you hope?
Well, I have 3 young kids, 9, 3, and 1-year-old. And I guess what gives me hope is just like seeing them and seeing the world through their eyes, how pure they are, how optimistic they are, how sweet they are. Because it is dark out there, and D.C. is even darker.
Yes.
Sorry, I went there. But even if it's as tough as it is right now, and if you're out there talking to, especially like working families and Latino families, as much as they should be looking at the future and be like, this is not looking good, they still have that glimmer of hope. They're still willing to go out there. I mean, when I talk about Latinas starting a business that's 6 times the rate of the general population, it's not historically. I'm talking about right now. So right now, as tough as things are, housing costs, inventory costs, everything you can think of, right? Destabilizing war, El Loco in the White House. Latina women are saying, you know what? I still believe in this country. I still believe in myself. I'm gonna go forward, right? Still, as these bad as things are, we still have Latinos that are joining the military because they want to serve their country, right? So, we, and I say we, like us, La Raza, our people, still have this glimmer of hope and belief in this country. And I think that's really what's still driving me every day, to keep fighting for them, because they keep fighting for this country too. And I think we have to hang on to something, especially when things are getting, as dark as they are now.
Join me in thanking Senator Ruben Gallego from the state of Arizona.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Let's do a quick picture. Thank you real quick right here.
This concludes today's plenary. Thank you to Janet and our excellent guests this afternoon. Please be sure to join us tonight for Austin Tiene Ritmo with performances from Bobby Pulido and the Gamez Cuellar Brothers tonight at 6 p.m. in the Congressional Ballroom. See you then.
Today we are recording live from Unidos 2026 Annual Conference in Austin, providing upstage for bold advocacy centered in progress for Latino communities across the nation. Today, honored elected officials, community organizers, visionary leaders from across sectors, and champions for policies that drive progress have come together to demonstrate how local power is opening doors for opportunity and delivering a better future for all. One keynote speaker has joined us today, and we are so excited to welcome Senator Ruben Gallego to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So to start us off, would you just tell us a little sneak peek of what you shared with the audience, hundreds in attendance in Austin today?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very simple message, and I think it's more of a message for the rest of the country. Like, when we talk about the Latino community, we're actually talking about the country, right? Because, look, if the Latino community is not prosperous, the country's not prosperous. If we're not educated, the country's not educated. Why is that? Because we're a growing part of this population of this country. And really, it's not just Latinos. It's really any part of this country. If we're not investing in, Black America, then we're not investing in America. If we're not investing in working class white America, then we're not investing in America. And I just want to kind of remind people about that.
Thank you. And next, we'd like to hear a little bit more about those topics you discussed today. Of course, we're recording in Texas, which faces some of the most extreme costs of the increasing wealth gap and brunt of the blunt force of authoritarianism, xenophobia, and racist attacks on our communities. How do you see the shared fight for progress as it connects between Arizona to Texas, and what unites us?
Well, then the fight in Arizona has been a fight that we're very used to, unfortunately, because we had to deal with, SB 1070, Short Door Pile, Racial Profiling from many years ago. The fight for economic progress is something that we've been fighting for a while because it's not necessarily shared. And now it's even worse. On stage, I talked about the fact that we're about to create the poorest generation of Americans ever because we can't get people into homes. And these, young families, I'm not talking 20-year-olds, I'm talking 30-year-olds, 35-year-olds are going to be doomed. And the government, us, Democrats, Republicans, just kind of treat it as it's just another policy problem. They don't understand. We're literally going to force these families to live in poverty. We're not taking this as a serious threat to a huge swath of our country, right? And so, That's what unites us, right? What Texas is dealing with in terms of like fighting against like rogue ICE in general, not just rogue ICE, rogue ICE, the racial profiling. The Latino in Arizona is going to get treated just like the Latino in Texas. But also the working class person in Texas is going to have the same challenge as a working class person in Arizona if we don't have politicians actually understand how dire the economic situation is right now. This isn't just like, oh, someone's going to have to live with their parents for another 2 years. Yeah. We're literally going to be dooming millions and millions of Americans to generational poverty if we don't move.
So recently you spoke in an interview about a potential presidential run. We are here to talk specifically about the quote, which you said, "There's only a couple of Democrats that can speak to working class America, especially Latino men. I'm one of them." Would you talk about, in these divided times, what the importance of solidarity and community-driven, service-oriented leadership? You talk about working class and Latinos as it ties to the American dream. Share some more.
Well, it isn't tied to the American dream. It's what actually, when you're poor or you're working class, it's what actually drives you, right? Because these jobs are hard, right? Like, I did some really hard jobs until I was able to be a successful story about the American dream, right? I worked at meatpacking factories, worked at construction companies, worked at the restaurant gigs. All of that is worth it if you know it actually brings something. What does that bring? Does it bring your family stability? Are you able to pay, the rent? Are you able to get a house? Are you able to give your kids what they need? Are you able to feel a little better about life? Take a vacation? When you don't feel that way, then what is worth, right? Then you're just a peon. And that, I think, is what unites working class Latinos and just working class people in general. Because we all believe in the American dream, but it's not really happening right now. People are working so hard and they're just actually sliding further and further along. And I think, politicians from both sides of the aisle just are not taking this in a very serious manner and understanding that we're dooming a big generation of Americans to just, a life of, I think, that most Americans just never expected that was going to be part of their future.
Finally, thank you for sharing with us a little bit about what unites us. Of course, there are so many things that keep us divided between access to public goods, our wages, our privacy, so much more to discuss. Exactly. The list goes on. Yeah. But as we close out, and again, recording from Texas, this is a critical year for advancing progress if we can turn out Texas voters and Americans across the country. Yeah. You also share in this interview that we've just referenced, there's only a couple of Democrats that are thinking of running for president that have won red states. I'm one of them. We are a red state. Would you talk a little bit about what that took and what you see the next few months taking for the rest of us?
So it's actually interesting. I've been talking about Texas even before Texas became cool this year. Because I did see the elements of what we saw in Arizona in the sense that, Arizona used to be a very ruby red state. We're a purplish state, and sometimes lean red too. And it takes a couple elements, and I think you have that here with a bunch of candidates too. So not just like James Talrico, who's extremely talented, generational talent, right? But also Gina Hinojosa. And then you have these congressional candidates that are qualified, popping up all over the country. Everyone talks about Bobby Polito. I think that's I listened to Bobby Polito in Savannah growing up, right? That's how, and that guy, and he and I have been friends for a while, and I'm glad he's running. But you also have Gallego, who's running a very competitive district against a fucking crazy guy, right? Yeah. And, you have these great candidates that are running against very corrupt, unlikable candidates, right? In an election year, that's going to potentially swing their way. So all these elements are starting to add up. You have Latinos that are coming back to the Democratic fold. Hopefully we can hold them not just this election, next election. I think you have moderate, suburban, moms and dads that just don't like the extremism of this party. They don't like the fact we're going to random wars or anything else like that. I think you have some disaffected Trump voters that, they wanted lower prices, no wars, and expose the pedophiles. What did they get? They got Epstein cover-up, more wars, and higher prices. So those guys, they may not even vote for Democrats. They may just not vote at all, right? And again, the talent is there. The motivation is there. You have, the wave is coming. I think you have a bunch of great candidates on great surfboards that can bring that wave in. And that's how you win these red states. You can't guarantee wins in red states. All you could do is do everything possible to get yourself in that position. And if that wave hits, then you're writing it in.
Thank you, Senator Ruben Gallego, for joining us today. And you did mention the Epstein files. I would be remiss not to note, of course, you played a critical role in the release of the Epstein files. And so we look forward to your work down the road in holding the powerful accountable. And again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.